Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. The Inspector General testified that Peter Strzok led the investigation, both for the email investigation and the initial Russian investigation. Would you agree with his characterization of that?
Well, I wasn't there. I do think it's fair to say that Mr. Strzok played a lead role in both investigations. Exactly how it was structured and who supervised whom, that's probably subject to a little more context and explanation by others, but I don't think that's far off.
Fair enough. And then, so what's been characterized today is that the finding of the Inspector General is that there was none of the bias that has brought Mr. Strzok into such under a microscope so closely affected the decisions made in the Hillary Rodham Clinton investigation. But that's a bit of a mischaracterization, because under questioning, and let's just go there. You probably have the book right there. If you go to page 211, I think it is. Let's see here. Nope. Page 149. What you'll find, and this is one thing the Inspector General testified as well, is that he did not find documentary testimonial evidence that improper considerations, including political bias, directly affected the specific investigative decisions. But when we explored it, he admitted that those biases that Mr. Strzok had, and not just Mr. Strzok, but the others listed that I think have been referred for discipline, probably indirectly affected not only the information that decision makers had, but the decisions that were made. Would that be accurate? I know neither one of you were there, but do you think that might be accurate?
Well, Congressman, I think I'm going to let the Inspector General's report speak for itself. I don't
I'm talking about his testimony, not his.
Yeah, no, I wasn't here when he testified.
Yeah, it was. I didn't expect you to be watching, as riveting as it was. So, so that leads me to a series of questions related to what's going on here, and we move into the last investigation, the ongoing investigation. So I'll go to you, Mr. Rosenstein. The scope letter. Who wrote the scope letter for Mr. Mueller's, what the scope of his duties would be?
I don't know exactly who wrote it, but I'm responsible for it.
You signed off on it, probably.
Correct. And
have you turned an unredacted copy of that over to any congressional committee?
Not as far as I know.
Okay. And why is that?
Congressman, I really appreciate that question, because I understand why there's some confusion about this. And we only have 2 minutes and 7 seconds, but I wrote in my letter dated yesterday the history and the explanation of why it is wrong for the Department of Justice to publicly identify people who are subjects of investigation. So I certainly completely understand why you asked the question, but I hope that the letter will speak for itself in explaining why it is our policy not to do that. Now, people have deviated from that in the past, and my commitment is to follow the rules. That's a commitment I made to the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, when I took this job, and I recognize it's confusing because people have departed from the rules in the past. We're following the rules.
We're talking specifically the scope letter. So,
yes, sir.
So, okay,
we do not identify persons, as is disclosed in the portion that's made public. We don't identify persons publicly unless they're charged, and we explain that in the letter.
Okay. So let's go into, I sent you a letter, and I don't know if you got it because it's just a couple days old, June 25th, asking if you were going to provide us with the names of everyone who has served past and present on Mr. Mueller's special counsel investigation, because as you might guess, we're kind of curious what vetting has gone in. The Inspector General found, at least in his testimony, that there was still probably one person still on that investigative team that he found to have untoward bias. And so are you inclined to release that, or is this something you and I need to talk about offline?
Yes, sir. When I took this job, I committed that I was going to read every letter personally.
Mr.
Boyd pointed out that's not practical, so I haven't been able to do that. I completely understand that question. We'll review it. Obviously, our administration is very committed to backing the blue and protecting law enforcement officers from any kind of abuse or retaliation. I'd be reluctant to publicly name people who aren't on the front lines just because of what that might invite, not by you, obviously, but by people who are ill-motivated. But I think you raised an important question. I have talked with Mr. Mueller on several occasions about the importance of making sure the people on his team.
Okay, I don't want to cut you off, but we'll get back to that maybe offline or something like that. But so I've got 10 seconds left. This is important. September 2nd, 2016, Lisa Page wrote a letter Mr. Strzok saying that she had talking points for Director Comey because POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. Please identify POTUS and what you think she meant when she said
I don't want to speculate on what Ms. Page meant. I do want to say, if I may, Congressman, I think it's important for you to understand that I completely understand the President's frustration with what's reflected in this report. I mean, nobody would be happy to know that people were sending those sort of text messages and they have those kind of views. And so I completely understand his frustration. My commitment is to make sure that everything that we do accords with the facts and the law, and we do not allow any bias to influence what happens on our watch.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Liu, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me start by saying it is ridiculous and stupid we're having an emergency hearing into the investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails in 2016. It is now June 2018, and thousands of kids have been ripped away from their parents by the Trump administration's child separation policy. They have not yet been reunited, and the kids not knowing if they're ever going to see their parents again or where they are is a trauma and horror we can only imagine. But since Republicans control the agenda, let's at least try to have this stupid hearing be based on the facts. And the central fact from this IG investigation is that no personal views of any FBI or DOJ employee affected their integrity of the investigation. So, Director Wray, I'm going to read to you some of the findings from this IG investigation, as if you agree with it. The IG found our review did not find evidence to connect the political views expressed in the text messages to the specific investigative decisions. Do you agree with that?
We accept the finding, yes.
All right. It further found that the investigative decisions were the result of discretionary judgments made during the course of an investigation by agents and prosecutors, and that these judgment calls were not unreasonable. Do you accept that finding?
We accept that finding.
The IG report further found, in fact, that Agent Strzok advocated for more aggressive investigative measures against Hillary Clinton, including the use of grand jury subpoenas and search warrants to obtain evidence. Do you accept that finding?
We accept that finding.
And the reason Agent Strzok did that is because in America, we let people have personal views. But we expect that when they go do their job, when they enter the FBI building, they check their views at the door. That's what we expect of our agents. And in your case, Director Wray, you're a Republican, nominated by a Republican president, confirmed by a Republican-controlled Senate. You have made over $39,000 exclusively in donations to Republican candidates. I still trust you because you check your beliefs at the door and you're doing your job. And in fact, when you interview agents to hire, you can't ask them if they are a Democrat or Republican and whether you should hire them. Isn't that right?
That is correct. I will say, Congressman, that I take very seriously our obligation to do our jobs apolitically, independently, and objectively, no matter who likes it, either side. I will also say that we don't subject our agents to political litmus tests. I will also say that we expect our agents to check their opinions, as you said, at the door, not unlike in this system, judges all around the country who have their own political views that range across the spectrum and sometimes hold them very deeply, or juries that have all kinds of views, or doctors that hold all kinds of views. All of them are entitled to have those views, but we need them to check those views at the door and honor their oaths, and that's what I expect of every agent, analyst, and professional staff person in the FBI.
Thank you. I deeply appreciate that. I was at the closed hearing of Peter Strzok yesterday, and I just have to say my Republican colleagues have mischaracterized his testimony. A number of his text messages have been misconstrued and mischaracterized. It is deeply ironic that my Republican colleagues are yelling and screaming about document production when they refuse to release his unredacted transcript from yesterday's closed hearing. They need to release it to American people. We need to see Peter Strzok's testimony, and he needs to be at an open hearing. I hope my Republican colleagues will do that. Now, let me move to something that the President said in an official statement on Twitter. He said a number of times that we've got a deep state. So I asked in another hearing, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, was there a deep state at the State Department? He laughed, and he basically said, no, there was not. So, Director Wray, I'm going to ask you, is there a deep state at the FBI?
Congressman, I've never completely understood the term deep state. What I can tell you is that we have 37,000 men and women working in field offices all over the country and in legat offices all over the world, And they are people of character, of courage, of principle, of selflessness, and of patriotism. And that's the FBI that I see.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I hope the President stops attacking the FBI. And then let me conclude my comments to you, Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein. You have shown immense courage in the face of unfair criticism and overreaching requests. Stand your ground. You took an oath to the Constitution, not to any particular administration or political party or even this Judiciary Committee. Do not produce documents that would jeopardize people's lives. Do not produce documents that can threaten sources and methods. Do not produce documents that will affect an ongoing investigation. Stand your ground, play it straight, do it by the book as you have been doing, and history will judge you.